Hi there, this is Dr. with Rangers of Wrestling their Wrestling Time post show, and for tonight I will be reviewing AEW Dynamite. So AEW Dynamite was live tonight on a special Tuesday night, and it was called Title Tuesday. Now, a lot happened on tonight's show, but I want to start off by saying, I wish Hangman a speedy recovery. I hope he's okay. He was injured during the main event on tonight's show, so best wishes to him, and I hope he's okay. All right, so let's talk about that MJF promo. So he so when Regal came out to the ring, and before even Regal could say anything, MJF came out. And he was saying how he isn't here to fight, so Regal can put the brass knucks away. And he was going to tell a story about him and Regal. And he said he didn't care if Regal. He said he didn't care if Regal was going to take, if it was going to take forever, because Regal needed to listen to him. He owed him that. Okay. So the story basically is about MJF being 19 years old, and he was training to become a pro wrestler. He was trained by Brian Myers and Pat Buck. And that they got him a WWE tryout, and they told him to pack his bags, and he put on his best suit. So he starts talking about how, I'm assuming this was at the time where like Regal was part of NXT, because he says that. Give me 1 second, you guys. All right, so he starts talking about how he was going to NXT for this tryout, and he wasn't fighting for a contract. He was fighting for his life, because pro wrestling is his life. And then he said that Regal pulled him away from the group, and that he gave him 3 minutes to sell himself. And Regal had promised him to get him a job there today. But then when he asked him for his age, he said that he was too young. Yet he says that how he got Bryan Danielson, Claudio Castagnoli, and even Jon Moxley jobs. And so every single month he sent him a promo and a match. And he had one last promo that was saved on his phone to this very day. So he starts reading this promo. And he says that after he read it, he wanted to kill himself. But then he realized that if he did that, Regal and everybody else would win. And he's like, and then he starts saying about how he's now, William Regal is nothing more than a sad, ridiculed old man who got fired. And that he snuck into his company. Yes, he says his company, by latching himself onto talents better than himself, and that he's nothing more than a joke, and that he's about to become AEW champion. So I actually really like this promo by MJF. I like it when he does these heartfelt promos. He did one similar to CM Punk, and how he looked up to CM Punk, and then let's not forget that pipe bomb that he dropped in the LA show. So I like it when MJF does promos like this. And so then William Regal responds, and he starts talking about how when he was 16, he left home, and he had to fight grown men to get into this industry. and that when he saw MJF, he basically like said that he saw someone who could be a star, and he wanted to light a fire under MJF. And he starts talking about how that email was easy, and he mastered something. He said before MJF was born, he was insulting Tony Schiavone, that anybody who steps between the ropes is fair game. But he told him never to put his hands on Tony Schiavone, because if you remember, MJF did attack Tony Schiavone. And he starts talking about how MJF let him down because he took shortcuts. And he says that he just because he's getting paid doesn't mean he impressed Regal. That he basically tells MJF that he didn't need shortcuts. That if he wants to show he's the devil, he wants to show the world he's the devil. And then Regal turns around and MJF does nothing. And he turns back around and says that MJF still has a lot to learn. So I really, 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 really absolutely love this promo and this segment. MJF is, like I said earlier, he's so good at cutting these promos. Like, oh my God, it was really amazing. But I wonder where this is gonna go with Regal. Like, I really do. Like, I'm curious, very curious to see where this goes. But fantastic promo by MJF. But with that being said, let's start from the beginning now. So tonight's Dynamite kicked off with AEW World Trios Championship match. It was Death Triangle versus Orange Cassidy and Best Friends. So this was a good match. Obviously, this is kind of, I guess you can say, a rematch, because Death Triangle fought Best Friends and Orange Cassidy for those trio titles after they were vacated. Penta, shout out, dressed as the Joker here. And I really like that triple drop kick to Orange Cassidy that Death Triangle did. I like the fact that Pac did a dropkick to Orange Cassidy while he was being held by the Lucha Brothers. And Fenix went face first, sternum first, into the ring post by Chuck Taylor. Now, here's was an interesting tidbit that happened. So, like you guys know, Pac has been using that bell hammer to win matches. So he grabs it in this match, but Rey Fenix stops him from using it, basically saying he doesn't need it to win this match. And that Phoenix wins this match is for his team, so Death Triangle retains. But I found that was very interesting. Maybe the cracks are starting to form in Death Triangle. So I wonder how Pac is going to think why Rey Fenix stopped him from using that hammer. But overall, great opening match to the show. So we have a backstage segment with Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, and Jamie Hayter, talking about how one of them is gonna become interim champion, but then Britt corrects her and says one of them would be AEW Women's World Champion. So this leads into the AEW Interim Women's World Championship match, Toni Storm versus Hikaru Shida, and this match was 10 years in the making. It was. They go way back, and this was a good match. I was not expecting Shida to win here. Obviously, Toni Storm retained. And after Toni Storm retained, Jamie, Rebel, and Britt came out and attacked Storm. Well, actually, Jamie and Rebel did. Then, as Britt was coming down to the ring, Soraya came out and attacked Britt, sent her over the barricade. And then guess who's back? Rihu. Rihu is back. She drop-kicked Rebel, did the crossbody to Jamie Hayter. So next week, we're going to get Jamie Hayter versus Rihu. So great return by Rihu. Then we get an FTR segment. And they basically welcome Renee to AEW. They say that she's way back. She goes way back with them. Obviously, their days in NXT. And that they've been number one contenders pretty much this entire time. They want to add the tag titles to their collections. They're ROH champions, AAA champions. So they're trying to add those tag titles. But then Swerve Strickland comes out and says that they haven't yet to invoke the rematch clause. And so next week we're going to get Swerve in Our Glory versus FTR for it to be determined the number one contenders. So I think that if FTR becomes number one contenders, I think they're taking those tag titles. And they're just going to hold pretty much all the tag titles in every promotion. I'm so surprised that they have yet to go back and hold the NWA tag titles. You would think those would be tag titles that they would go after, but I guess not. Then we had Darby Allin and Jay Lethal segment. And there's not supposed to be any physicality between us, but you know how that goes. So basically, the whole point of this segment is that Jay Lethal wants a rematch because he says that Darby Allin's victory was a fluke. And then they go at it. They like roar the gate and they crush his ribs. And they're just attacking poor Darby Allin. But interesting thing, Sanjay Dutt says that a close personal friend of theirs let them know what Darby's weakness was. So I wonder who that friend was, and what Darby Allin's weakness is. So then this is when we get the MJF segment, which I already talked about. So just to reiterate, again, it was a very good segment, very good, very like passionate promo by MJF, and he's just really good at dropping those really good promos. I actually really liked it. That was probably hands down my favorite part of the show. So we get an Acclaimed segment, and the whole point of this segment is it's a title versus trademark on Rampage. It's against the Varsity Athlete. So basically, you guys remember they took the scissoring knee away from the Acclaimed because Smart Mark Sterling filed the copyright for that. And I'm pretty sure like the Gun Club is, well, actually no. You know what? I would think the Gun Club would lose this. Actually, no. Title. If it's the title versus the trademarks, then I think the Gun Club is winning this. If this was just for to win the trademark back, then I would say the Gun Club would lose, and then it would lead to something like this. But no, I mean the Acclaim would lose, and it would lead to something like this. But because it's the title versus trademark, I think the Acclaim is winning that back. We have a sit down with Bryan Danielson and Wheeler Yuta. And he starts talking about how Daniel Garcia, if he was guided correctly, could be the best wrestler he's ever seen. This offends Wheeler Yuta because Wheeler Yuta asked him how he was not surprised. Him and Claudio saw this coming. And he said that he bled for the BCC and he thought it meant something. And it means something to Claudio and it means something to Moxley. And he thought he was wrong and then walks away. So I'm sensing some friction there. Doesn't seem like Wheeler Yuta was too happy that Bryan wanted to take Daniel Garcia under his wing. We have the Ring of Honor World Championship match. It's Chris Jericho versus Dalton Castle. Before I get into this, we did have some news about Chris Jericho and Ring of Honor that broke earlier today. In an interview with Sports Illustrated's Justin Barrasso, Tony Khan talked about a TV deal for Ring of Honor. He states, Tony Khan on the subject says, "We'll have great news soon about Ring of Honor weekly shows," he added. "The success of Death Before Dishonor on pay-per-view has ensured there will be more Ring of Honor pay-per-views. Our goal is to have one more great pay-per-view for Ring of Honor in 2022 and then follow that up with a weekly show in 2023. And so it was announced that Death Before Dishonor will be December 10th, which would be the last Ring of Honor pay-per-view for 2022. And speaking of Chris Jericho, and then according to Variety, Chris Jericho has signed a contract extension with All Elite Wrestling that will keep him with the company through December 2025. In addition, Chris Jericho would take on increased responsibilities behind the scenes. AEW will now serve as producer and creative advisor, in addition to continuing as a mentor to young talent. So good for Chris Jericho. It seems like he's probably just going to end his career in AEW. Never say never in wrestling. So it's hard for me to say, oh, Chris Jericho's never going to go back to WWE. Who knows? Maybe for a Hall of Fame induction. But I think it's safe to say he's going to end his career with AEW. So this match starts off, obviously it's a Ring of Honor match. So Chris Jericho tries to attempt to abide by the code of honor. He extends his hand to Dalton Castle. Dalton Castle, I don't guess, does not believe Jericho would actually do this. So he gives him the bird. He flips the bird. And he shoulder tackles Chris Jericho. And one of my favorite spots in this match was when Dalton Castle took the boys and he just threw them onto Hager. And then like the boys on the outside attack Jack Hager. They steal his hat, but that causes Jack Hager to go ballistic, and he just starts attacking the boys. Chris Jericho putting Dalton Castle on the walls of Jericho. Now Dalton Castle broke his back, and you can see the back brace. So that was excruciating pain for poor Dalton Castle. Give me 1 second. All right, so obviously, like Chris Jericho wins this, and one thing that I do have to say is that Chris Jericho didn't cheat. He did not cheat to win this, which is actually pretty good because Chris Jericho has been like cheating in most of his matches. So at the end, he cuts a promo. He says, "All honor the Ocho." And he says that Ring of Honor announcers are done, even the commentators. And so he goes and gets Ian Riccaboni, who was on commentary, and he's about to attack him. But Jerry Lynn stops Chris Jericho. And so Jerry Lynn, unfortunately, because of that, suffers a tombstone pile driver on the Ring of Honor belt. So Chris Jericho is just on his mission to decimate Ring of Honor. I wonder, it seems to me like after that tombstone, he's probably going to face Jerry Lynn next. Like Jerry Lynn is a former Ring of Honor champion. So it seems like that's what that direction that we're going with. And so then we get a quick backstage segment with Jay Cardo, and she's basically telling Tony Khan that either Nyla Rose gives her the belt or she will hijack the show for 60 minutes. So that's on Rampage. Our main event, the AEW World Championship match, is Jon Moxley versus Hangman Adam Page in Jon Moxley's hometown. So Hangman, like you guys know, Jon Moxley comes through the crowd and stuff. And so Hangman goes into the crowd after Moxley doesn't even give him a chance to come into the ring. Gives him the boot to the face. And then he does the suplex on the concrete. And then Hangman moonsaults from the arena sculpting onto Moxley. And somewhere along the way, Moxley gets busted open. Moxley gets back at Hangman with biting his head and using the back rake. Now, of course, MJF is watching on the skybox. And so in the middle of this match, they cut to the skybox and MJF has left the skybox mid-match. Hangman with a dead eye on the ring apron. Oh my God, that looked terrible. And the match was going fine until we got close to the end where Moxley gave a King Kong Lariat to Hangman, and it looked like Hangman landed wrong, and the doctor came in to check on Hangman, and the doctor stopped the match. He stopped the match, so Jon Moxley won. I'm sure that's not the way Jon Moxley wanted to win. It led to a really awkward moment because it cut over to commentary, and they were just talking, and they were going over to the matches that are happening next week, and they were stalling for time. And they said that Hangman had to get stretchered out of there. I really hope Hangman is okay and that he's not too seriously injured. We don't know the extent of his injury yet, but I hope he's okay. I really hope he is okay. And they said they had to take him out on a gurney. And then Jon Moxley starts cutting a promo where he says he hopes and prays Hangman recovers to 100%, can talk, can walk, and wrestle for everybody. And he starts talking about how this is a dangerous game. You got to put everything on the line. And Moxley's right. You know, wrestling is a very dangerous game. You could go out there and get injured in your first match, whether it be your first match, your 100th match, or your 1000th match. You can get injured at any time. And unfortunately, Hangman got injured in this match. And so he basically calls out MJF for what he said earlier. And then MJF comes out with the chip in the ref. And Moxley flips him off. And he hands the chip to Regal after he takes off his shirt. And he goes and he grabs a microphone. And he talked about how early in the night Regal said that he disappointed him because he took shortcuts. So MJF starts talking about how you want to talk about me cutting corners and about being a man. So he announces that he's officially going to cash in on Moxley when he's 100%. He doesn't want excuses and he doesn't want there to be any doubt. And for the first time in his miserable life, he's going to earn this. He's going to cash in at Full Gear. So our main event for Full Gear is going to be none other than Jon Moxley versus MJF for the AEW World title. And honestly, like, I'm not surprised we're getting that match. I think we have been building to this match for a while. And I'm not going to be... And honestly, MJF needs to take that title from Jon Moxley. I think it's MJF's time. I don't know how much longer you can wait or stall for MJF, but I think it's his time. And that is how Dynamite goes off the air. And overall, it was a really great show. Unfortunately for that injury, it kind of put a damper on things because it was such a good match. And poor Hangman, again, getting injured in that match. But overall, aside from that injury, I'd say this is a Sean Spears perfect 10. There's not one thing I disliked about the show. Would I have liked for that match to finish? Of course I would have. I think all of us would have wanted a strong finish, but I'm not going to take points away from that because Hangman got injured. So overall, great show. But with that being said, you guys, thank you guys all so much for watching and for the continuous support. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Make sure you hit that bell so you get notified whenever I go live or release a new video. And I'll see you guys on Friday after AEW Rampage. Bye.